Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be covering the team I used to get over 3,100 on Go Battle League on the scoreboard, and I was able to get to 24th in the world at the time. It's a team that I covered in the past, but essentially it's Bastiodon, Shadow Banette, and Meganium. And so I have some earlier footage of getting to rank 10 using this team, so I'll link that video down below so you can check it out. But with the updates to the grass Pokemon and a few other updates like Stunfisk, Great League definitely changed a little bit, so I just wanted to see how this team would go. So I'll show you all 25 battles I did in one of those days, and I had already hit 3,100 using this team up to this point. That way you can see how this team works against really tough players. Okay, so getting into this first matchup, I'm gonna show my losses obviously as well, so you can see some places where I made mistakes, and I'll kind of comment on why I made those mistakes, or like how I did and what I could have done better. And obviously there's some teams that are just really hard to play against. So I do a quick swap into Meganium here to absorb an Earthquake, which ended up working really well. I don't usually save swap Meganium, but I figured in this moment that it might be a good call. And the main purpose of this is usually to get out a flyer from the opponent. But in this situation, because they didn't have a flyer, it kind of worked out because they had the Ox's defense here. And this puts me in a really good spot because I have 2 shields up now to 0 with a Shadow Banette. Shadow Banette with energy just tears through pretty much everything. So you'll see this real quick right here. And just Shadow Claws will do pretty well here. And then this one Shadow Ball you'll see does quite a bit of damage against this Meganium. Pretty much one-shots it at that health. And then here I'm going to go straight for our Thunder, and that's going to do a ton of damage to Zumaro. And pretty much I didn't even really need to use Bastiodon besides take a few Vine Whips. So the sack swap on my Meganium definitely worked there, but as you can see, Shadow Banette is really strong, and you definitely want Shadow Banette versus regular Banette. Mainly because there's a lot of matchups with Shadow Banette. If there's things going unshielded like Shadow Ball usually, you pretty much can flip the entire matchup. There's very few things that can survive a Shadow Ball. Even a Shadow Ball at a Zweilous will take it down pretty low, even though Zweilous resists that ghost damage. Umbreon is one of the few exceptions, as well as Bastiodon. This is a tough matchup in general because I'm going Bastiodon into Umbreon, and I can't really switch into anything like my Banette usually because it just doesn't have a great matchup. And then I don't want to lose switch advantage by just switching to Meganium because that's kind of a neutral matchup anyway. But as you can see, my opponent didn't shield the Registeel, and that did a ton of damage. My guess is they probably also want to utilize their Umbreon more, which is why they kind of let it go, knowing that they'll have a good matchup. But it even beats out Umbreon right there. So yeah, I think my opponent might have just messed up a little bit. Didn't think that the Shadow Ball would pretty much take out the Umbreon at that range. Going against my buddy CCO right here, he's going with a Seaking. So Seaking with Legacy moves, Poison Jab, Drill Run, and Icy Wind is actually not bad. It covers a lot of the core meta like Registeel, Altaria, and Azumarill. It doesn't always beat them depending on the situation, but it has moves for them. But as you can see here, I found out later as well that he's actually only just running the Drill Run variant at the moment. Trying to see if it was worth switching to Icy Wind. And then I'm just going to go for a quick switch right here, try to chunk down as much damage as I can with Shadow Claw, and then he does shield, and at this point I don't shield it because he's down a shield, and that's fine. My guess is if he had a fly, he would have brought it out by now. And then Meganium has a great matchup against Seaking as well, especially if it's not running Icy Wind. And so he does bring out the flyer at this moment, so I guess that's fine too because I still have the Bastion, which does decent against the Seaking. I'm not sure if he knew my lineup or not. I do go for quick switch. I knew his Seaking was kind of low. But yeah, because usually people bring out the flyer right when they see the Banette. And the main reason behind that is because they know that Bastion is such a bad matchup, so they want to get rid of their flyer and not have to worry about Bastion on the back. But yeah, so definitely kind of a different lineup than you probably see. So again, catching the flyer, really great situation. I will say that when you're using this lineup, the majority of situations you're not going to win lead, so you have to catch a flyer or like a haunter or something. So I don't shield this rock slide mainly because I know that if I just keep Shadow Clawing down, I should be able to win this unless he shields his. And then so as you can see, so his shield was actually a really bad mistake because he didn't realize that with the resisted counters, it's just not going to do enough. Okay, and my opponent doesn't shield their Skarmory, which is kind of interesting. And then right here, bring in the Meganium, and that's pretty much GG's right there. So, and my opponent quits for good reason right there. As I said, you're probably not going to win lead in most situations. You lose to Azumarill, Registeel, all the fighters, all the mud boys. So a lot of it counts on drawing out that flyer with Banette, and this works out right here. And so if my opponent didn't shield there, that Shadow Ball almost one-shots Altaria, and then you can pretty much Shadow Claw it down and shield. And that way you win switch advantage too, which is pretty deadly. Now, sometimes that's not ideal too, because then you're down a shield. If they play it right, they can still win if they have like a, I don't know, Registeel and Azumarill on the back. But usually win that switch advantage is pretty big. And then I go here quickly, soften up the Registeel, mainly because now it puts it into Earthquake range. And then they switch in Azumarill. Not a great matchup, to be honest. And they have Play Rough, so I didn't realize that. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have shielded. And then here, I'm just going to go straight Frenzy Plants. And the main reason behind this is because, well, I was able to bait out shield, which works out. But because it was so low, too, I figured even if they didn't shield, I could just go straight Frenzy Plants and win this. And then my opponent's quits out there. And I end up winning all 5 right there. And so if you look at my elo right there, 31-42, that's actually probably the highest I end up being that night. And the main reason you'll see next is I start losing some battles. But going 5-0 at 3100 plus, I would say not to like give myself too much props, but I think it's definitely not an easy feat, just to show kind of how much potential this team has, right? It's not some cheese team that you can kind of pull off and stuff. I will say this team definitely takes a lot more technique than some of my other teams, so you definitely have to kind of pay attention to this video and kind of figure some stuff out on your own. But it's not cut and dry like, oh, just go Bastiodon, safe switch Banette, and it should work out. Like you have to kind of understand a lot of matchups like that Deoxys defense one, knowing that you don't need a shield and you can still resist the counters and beat them out if they do shield in that one shield scenario. Right here, I believe I'm going to go mostly for farm down. I realized my opponent was actually going to go for a quick switch, and so I quickly switched to my Bastiodon, and from here I could just smack down. This is actually Robbie Aquinas, one of my locals in Atlanta too, and he is going to Continentals. He's qualified through regional, so definitely a top player. Always tough matchup every time I match with him. But yeah, so I had the feeling that he's going to try to switch quickly to that Altaria just to get rid of my Banette right there. And then, but I was able to kind of catch that, which was good. Okay, so going in, so again, not a great matchup, but Azumarill's not the worst matchup. It really depends on if they switch out or not. Usually, if opponent switches out in the lead, it's actually really good because now you have the energy advantage going to whatever's coming next. When they stay in, that's a little trickier because they have already an energy advantage. So my opponent does right here. I was able to get to another Shadow Ball. Now here's the thing. They're going to get to another... Oh, okay. Actually, they switched to Vigoroth. Really great play on them. And I don't believe I shield this. Vigoroth is actually really tough against the Star line, unfortunately. So I'm kind of stuck on what I want to do. Because if I bring in my Meganium... I know this is a terrible matchup. But I know that if I bring in my Meganium... and I wasn't able to get to Charge Mode, unfortunately. I need it for the Azumarill. Right, and if they have Registeel in the back, I really can't just get rid of the Meganium now. So it's actually a really great matchup for my opponent. And they had an Ice Beam stage, which really puts me in a tough spot. I'm pretty sure there's no chance of me winning this one. I don't even know if I end up seeing... Oh, it's a Haunter. Yeah, so yeah, this is going to be a tricky matchup. Even though I was able to bait it with a Frenzy Plant, I can't take it. So that sack swap they had on the Vigoroth was definitely really good on their end. Toxicroak, another tough one. Toxicroak in the lead is particularly tough because Banette's really the only thing that beats it, which shields up. Which shields down, I don't think really anything beats it on my team. But yeah, and my opponent doesn't shield the Altaria right there. So I kind of make a decision to just lose switch advantage here. But here's the problem though. If I don't shield and I don't gain switch advantage, I have very little I can farm off of this Altaria. So that's why I end up going with Meganium right here. And the fact that he brought out Toxicroak makes me think that he probably has a water in the back. And so I was hoping that was just a bait, but it isn't. And at this point, there's kind of no point shielding because there's no way I can win this matchup. So Toxicroak, definitely a tricky one. As Registeel too, but I have won a few situations where Toxicroak was in the lead, but it's very tough. Toxicroak in general on the team is tough. Toxicroak in the back is much more doable because you could potentially, if they switch into it, you could switch in your Banette. Scrafty, another tricky one too. So the main thing is nothing on my team directly beats Scrafty. Meganium's probably the best bet. But even then, it's not good. Scrafty with shields particularly is bad. So I do believe I shield here just so I can get off another friend's plan, because I need to soften up this Scrafty. Knowing that is probably a power punch anyway, there's really no reason for them to go foul plays. So double shields with Scrafty, not great. I do go Banette. I'm going to have to shield a foul play, but the counters are going to be resisted, so it's going to be doable to a degree. And then, of course, I go in straight with my Bastiodon, but a little bit lag. This fortunately was the day before lag got really bad. Oh yeah, and so very fortunate for my opponent, didn't end up doing any damage right there from their power whip. But second one goes through. I'm still in a tough spot regardless, even if even though they didn't get the damage in, it's gonna be tough. I'm gonna have to go straight for a flamethrower right there. And then let's see what they have in the back. But Stunfisk. Yeah, I believe I still lose this one because Stunfisk is pretty bulky and generates energy pretty quickly. It's going to take me out probably with the Mud Bomb or close to it. And then Bastiodon is not going to be able to do enough damage with Smackdowns, and he had enough energy charge. So GG's to my opponent there. Kind of glad that my opponent won there because that's kind of unfair that they didn't get that power whip off. Okay, so going against Toshi right here. Top player, of course, so I knew it was going to be a tough one. And so he also doesn't switch out Zumro, which is tricky. As you remember from the last matchup, from one of the previous matchups. I'm going to shield right here. I know that he gets another Shadow Ball. And then he goes in Galvantula. And this kind of makes sense because he wants to probably farm down with just the Volt Switches. And then at this point, I have a great matchup with Bastiodon, so no need to shield. Bastiodon's super tanky. This is why I like it over Registeel in a lot of situations. And then right here, I'm just going to go and force a shield right here. Or not force a shield, just hit it with the Stone Edge. And he goes in with the Ice Beam, which I don't know if he was baiting or he's maybe running Play Rough on his. But this is a pretty solid situation because with shields down, this Ferrothorn is not going to be able to take out this Meganium because I have a shield advantage. So at this point, I'm going to shield. And even though it's Power Whip, it's not the end of the world. And then I'm going to go quickly with the Earthquake. And then the Azumarill is pretty low, so even if it hits me with the Ice Beam, I know that I can take it out with Bastiodon because it'll be on pretty much neutral energy at this point. And then Bastiodon can finish it off. So right there, not great. I went 2 out of 5, so my rank obviously dropped quite a bit there. Shiftry's an interesting one. Nothing on my team hard counters it per se. Bastiodon does okay. Especially if it shields up, kind of on both ends, so you kind of want shields up on Shiftry as well. But then my opponent does for a quick switch onto Zumro. What I do is I usually let an Ice Beam go, and the main reason is because if I shield the Ice Beam, I know I could survive it anyway, but if I shield the Ice Beam, then their Fly Creature's farm me down. It's a waste of a shield. I could beat a Zumro even after taking an Ice Beam. The only time I can't is if they decide to shield. If I'm not slightly ahead on energy, I'll probably have to master shields too, but then they're in a tough spot because they lost a shield and lost switch. So going in right here, I have a shield advantage right now, so this is pretty good because I know that I can outpace this Registeel to 3 Shadow Balls before they could get to 3 Flash Cannons. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to shield again, and then I'm going to go in quickly. I'm going to farm a little bit more just because these lock-ons are doing very little damage to Banette. That's why this matchup against Registeel is pretty solid. And then my opponent smartly decides to go and drop a Leaf Blade because if not, that Shadow Ball definitely would have taken it out. At this point, it's pretty much in Smackdown range. They pretty much like... well, they probably should have used Leaf Blade too, but probably like 4 or 5 Leaf Blades to take me out. Stunfisk's lead is actually really great in my opinion. Main reason is because Stunfisk can do nothing against Meganium. And my opponent's shields are here, so this is a really good spot. And then they're going to expend their energy, that's fine. Usually what happens here is I bring my Bastiodon right away. I don't wait for the switch timer. The main reason is because if they have a chance to switch out that Altaria, and then they're going to have an answer to my Meganium later. So what I do is I actually like cut down my own switch timer and purposely switch it in so I could time it so that I could farm it straight down with Smackdowns. And then my opponent goes in with Stunfisk. Can't do anything there. Stunfisk, I mean, I'm not worried about it at all. It's going to do very little damage to Meganium, so I'm going to spend all my shields on this Registeel. My opponent doesn't shield And I think that makes sense given their situation, because that's pretty much their only win condition is if I went for bait and I failed the bait, because they're in a very tough situation right here. Even if they, shield an earthquake, I could just go another earthquake. At this point, pretty much nothing they can do. I'm going to go straight Frenzy Plant, pretty much full health Meganium, and the Stunfisk. If he stays in, you'll see how little damage it does. Mud Bomb or Discharge, both resisted. It's going to do nothing. I think Stunfisk also learns Muddy Water, and that's also going to be resistant, but I don't think anyone would run that, and it's probably not a good moveset to run. But this one Frenzy Plant will do it. And yeah, so take out Stunfisk's lead. So Stunfisk's lead is actually really good against for my team, in my opinion. Okay, Toxicroak. Let's see if I win this one or not. So my opponent actually stays in. Not a great idea by them, because the Shadow Claw is going to do quite a bit of damage, and the counters are going to be resistant. So do they switch out? They do switch out here. At this point, I'm thinking I'm just going to go straight Thunder, see if this will do anything. But they do shield, and that's fine. I want to use up my Meganium. Meganium with some energy can be solid here, because it's going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to that Toxicroak. At this point, it's probably within Frenzy Plant range. I'm going to farm up a little bit more and then go right here. So the main tricky thing is if he has a Flyer in the back, I pretty much lose. And so let's see if they have Flyer in the back. I was hoping the Flyer would come out, but no. So Registeel in the back, actually a pretty good situation, because I have a lot of energy loaded up, and I'm trying to catch. So I end up catching a Focus Blast, not great. And then I go. Ooh, that was probably a bad decision on my end, and Sludge Bomb takes me out. So that was a mistake by me right there. I think it was winnable. What I would probably have to have done. I don't know, it was tricky, just because that Toxicroak in the back definitely threatens both Meganium and Bastiodon. But I didn't want to take a Flash Cannon too. I don't know, that was a tricky situation. So this is a situation where the Altar doesn't shield. And then now I have Switch Advantage. Switch Advantage is pretty key right here, because this Banette can do quite a bit of damage. And then now I know the third Pokemon too. Well, I can't remember actually what their opening was. Oh yeah, Deoxys Defense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so now I switch advantage, and this is a good matchup because I want Meganium on the Deoxys Defense, not Bastiodon. We charge up a little extra energy here, and I believe I shield this. Yeah, that's the right call, because that Meganium is going to have to exhaust a lot of his energy just to take out my own Meganium. And then I thought about farming it down, but I was like, no, he's probably too close to Rock Slide at this point. So my opponent doesn't shield. Interesting enough. And then I'm going to go straight in with the Frenzy Plant right here. Opponent doesn't shield again. And so I go for a quick sack swap. I don't know. This is tricky actually, because they have energy and a shield up at this point. That was actually a good call by my opponent. And then there's no way I can come back from this. So that's well played. I'm trying to see what I could have done better. I don't know. Maybe if they spent a shield out of the Altaria, that might have been a good situation for them to spend it. Okay, so Meganium lead is always tricky because you never know if they're going to bait you with an Earthquake or go straight Fence Plant. My opponent does go straight Fence Plant at this point. If they go Earthquake, it's much better because I can switch into Banette, and yeah, I think I probably double shield right here, and they double bait me with a Fence Plant. Ugh, that's brutal. Yeah, I think that's pretty much GG's. Getting double baited on Fence Plant is pretty rough, because it's hard to come back from that shield deficit, and you pretty much need shields on that Banette. And then right here, I'm going to go in with my Bastiodon, just because I don't get that Flamethrower, see if they shield. They do shield. Not terrible. And so what I'm going to do right here is probably try to farm down this Registeel with Vine Whips. My opponent does go in with his Meganium. It's not end of the world. It just really depends on what their third is. So if it's something like a Zumro, even now it's tricky because I'm within Ice Beam range. Yeah, and so that's pretty much what it is. Smart play by my opponent to weaken me down with Fence Plant, and then now just one Ice Beam is going to be enough, and I can't get to another Fence Plant time. So that's well played. That double bait really did hurt my Bastiodon. Again, another 2 and 5 set, not the greatest, so I'm down to 3,100. Like I said, I'm including my losses here so you kind of see my misplays. Obviously, I lose just like anyone else, so just understanding kind of how my losses play out is pretty important. My opponent doesn't shield right here, so I believe I don't shield as well because I know I can survive a Mud Bomb, but not long enough, I guess. Maybe I should have shielded right there. We'll see. I guess it depends on what my opponent has right now. And so it's a Registeel. Not terrible. 2 shields against Registeel, and I think their opener was Azumarill. Not a bad situation. I never shielded the Flash Cannon, just because, at least the first one, mainly because if my opponent is running Ice Beam on their Azumarill, that's going to do more damage than Flash Cannon, but at the end of the day, it's all going to do about like half health anyway, one way or another. Right here, pretty solid situation. I was going to go quickly for a swap, but I wasn't able to get to it, unfortunately. And then right here, I'm just going to go straight farm down and then go Frenzy Plants, hoping to try to catch a bait, and my opponent doesn't fall for the bait, unfortunately. I did have Earthquake ready, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And then here, it's actually a tricky situation for my opponent, though, because if they hit me with Focus Blast, they can't farm me down because I'm going to still do quite a bit of damage to the Smackdowns. At this point, I'm committed to just fast moving down my opponent. I'm not going to get the other shield down, and then they're going to have to waste their energy on the Flash Cannon. And then right here, I was actually able to Vine Whip them down. So that actually was definitely a misplay by my opponent. Yeah, I guess it worked out. My opponent right here just quit. I'm not really sure what the deal was there. Anyway, go into this. Alolan Raichu, Galvantula, a lot of electrics, openers, great against Bastiodon. Great for Bastiodon, actually, even if it's grass not. You pretty much have no reason to really shield unless they start shielding. And my opponent does shield actually here. I'm not going to shield this because it's probably going to be a Thunder Punch, and it is. Just go straight down, and I believe I probably shield here. I'm going to swap quickly to Banette right here. Yeah, because take it out with one Shadow Claw. I have a Shadow Claw advantage. If they have a Flyer, they're probably going to bring it out right now. They do have a Flyer. So I'm going to go straight in with the Shadow Ball. I don't want to risk the Air Slash. And then, again, look how much damage that does. Now I'm going to shield because I have shield advantage. I will be able to get off another Shadow Claw in all situations. 2 flyers. 2 flyers. Wow, I would not have guessed this. Double flyers. Yeah, and my opponent doesn't shield again, which is very surprising. At this point, can it even take me out with Sky Attack? No. Else it would take it out. Had my Meganium seen what was coming up next, it would have been tricky. And he doesn't shield right there. So that could have been really tricky with the Bastion taken out. I guess that's a decent strategy if you catch a Azumarill or a Registeel in the lead. Yeah, a lot of people don't play Bastiodon, especially in the upper rankings too, so it definitely ends up catching a lot of people off guard because it could be a hole on their team, even though it doesn't seem like it'd be very good with the meta so commonly dominated by my boys Azumarill and Registeel. Galvantula, not a great situation right here, but because I was able to win switch, I'm just going to tank this. And now I go in with my Bastiodon, and then they quickly switch to Azumarill. Nothing they could do here. I believe I just went straight for the Frenzy Plant. Oh no, I'm going to charge up a little extra more. Drop the Frenzy Plant. My opponent will probably shield because they need this Azumarill against the Bastiodon, and then able to get to another one. Another great way to waste opponent's shield is if you have, if you're ahead a little bit on energy, or you have if they're not really ahead on energy on Azumarill, you can actually waste their shield and not have to shield yourself. Yeah, and the Bastiodon just Smackdown to finish. This player I think is ranked pretty high, maybe top 5 or so in GBL at the moment. But again, Hypno, a great opener, especially Shadow Hypno, because it cannot take that many Smackdowns. Right here is going to be tricky, so I'm going to try to outpace this Meganium. I think at this point, let's see if they end up shielding or not. They probably double shield here as well. If they do, I'm going to try to get pretty close to Shadow Clawing it down. Can't do that. Not the end of the world. So now I'm going to Vine Whip and just farm up a decent amount of energy right here. I know that he can't get to another Frenzy Plant. I'm going to drop a Frenzy Plant right here on this Hypno, and then go quickly for a swap to Bastiodon. This is not a bad situation, mainly because this Azumarill needs to waste all of his energy taking out my Bastiodon. And then I have a decent amount of energy ready on my Meganium. It's tricky though, because I know that they're going to be able to farm up quite a bit of energy right here on my Bastiodon, but this is also going to put it pretty low. Let's see if I can farm down. Okay, I can't, but what I'm going to do is try to farm down this Azumarill at this point. Ooh! And then they did a great swap into Fire Punch. Took me out right there. So great play by opponent right there. I was able to go 4 and 5 for that one, so getting back up there a little bit. And then I believe this might be my last set. And so right here I'm going to go in. Bastion, not a great lead situation. but they do switch straight to Azumarill. So at this point, this is not a terrible situation for me. My opponent also doesn't shield. Now that's actually puts me in a great spot because now I could pretty much go farm down Shadow Claw right here, have a Shadow Claw ready for the Registeel. Very dangerous. Banette with Shadow Claw loaded. It's going to be a Meganium, so this is good because I'm going to be able to pull off a shield right here. I'm going to get to another Shadow Ball, so it's going to force a double shield from this Meganium. And then they do double shield. And we go with my Bastiodon, see if they go for Earthquake or not. It is an Earthquake, and then I go quickly switch into my own Meganium. Having a shield up in this situation is pretty good. They actually drop a Focus Blast too, so I'm going to go straight Earthquake. No need to kind of fuss about this. And then I also noted that I have decent amount of energy left on my Bastiodon. At this point, this Registeel is in Vine Whip range, so I'm just going to Vine Whip it down and then drop this Frenzy Plants. I think at one point I'm going to probably try to switch to my Bastiodon. Yeah, I do that right here. Catch the Frenzy Plant, and then now I could get to Frenzy Plant before my opponent can, and that should be the match right there. Definitely tricky, but I think it would have worked out anyway, even if I didn't perfect that sack, because I think I had a Flamethrower already, so they kind of had to drop the Frenzy Plant. Ferrothorn lead is a little tricky, just because if the Ferrothorn shields your Bastiodon, it actually could do quite a bit of damage to it. I think if it double shields it, no, I can't beat it, but it'll be close, and you'll end up double shielding your Bastiodon. The main reason why it's not ideal is because if they get rid of your Bastiodon, you have no anti-flyer counter. So that's why I always swap, try to draw it out. Ends up being a Sableye. Not bad either, because Sableye ends up getting one shot by a Shadow Ball, so they have to kind of shield it and be at a switch disadvantage if that's the case. And I've noticed that a lot of people have been running Ferrothorn, Sableye, and I think it's Azumarill. I'm not really sure if someone popularized that line or not, or what, but I've been seeing a bunch of that combo with Ferrothorn lead. Anyway, so like I said, not a terrible situation right here. But I'm going to have to get off this Stone Edge and then go quickly and try to take out the Azumarill. I have to shield this right here. Ice Beam's going to do more damage than the Flash Cannon. Oh, they get to another one. Not ideal. Oh, and then they get to what I imagine is Flash Cannon. Yeah, so GG's right there. Very well played by my opponent right there. Yeah, so that's a tricky situation too, because Sableye actually chunks Bastiodon pretty quickly. I've won that line a few times, but my opponent there actually played it much better than most people I've seen. If they don't shield that Shadow Ball from Sableye, they end up getting one shot. So that was a good play by them to shield that and coming down from an 0-2 shield disadvantage. Okay, so going into Umbreon. Again, Umbreon's kind of a tricky one. You don't really want to swap into it too much because, yeah, okay, so they swap quickly, which is good. And then this puts me in a really great spot because now I pretty much can Shadow Claw it down. But the main thing is you don't know what they have in the back, and if they have a Flyer, you know, getting rid of your Bastiodon that early is not great. So it's going to force me to drop a Shadow Ball right here. Pretty good. Anytime an Umbreon has a shield any of Banette's charge moves, always a good time. And then at this point, I believe I probably go in with Meganium just to get some extra energy. Yep, get some extra energy with the Vine Whips, get a little head start. Clearly that paid off right here because now I'm in a Meganium Mirror. And I believe I switched quickly here. And the main reason right here is because I'm going to have to expend their energy or draw a shield from them. I actually do shield this, interestingly enough. And then I'm going to go straight Flamethrower. They're going to shield right here. But the reason I'm thinking about this is Smackdown is actually going to do quite a bit of damage, as you can see. Just so they're going to have to either drop a Frenzy Plant or be really low. And this one I'm at a pretty big advantage. Look at the health on my Meganium versus theirs. And they quit right there. Understandably so, because it was kind of tough to come back. So while this is actually a pretty solid lead, but I do have my switch screen ready just in case. This is probably going to be a Dark Pulse. Does a decent amount of damage, but you can farm quite a bit. They switch into Skarmory, actually. Not a terrible situation right here. And so I'm probably going to shield this Flash Cannon, because Flash Cannon does a decent amount, and obviously this Bastiodon actually has a lot of utility against the rest of his team. So that's why I'm going to actually go Flamethrower right here, and then oh, my opponent unfortunately is lagging right there. And let's see what they do next. Okay, so Zweilous, not a bad matchup for my team. Oh, they do a quick switch to Stunfisk. Very smart on their end, and then I had the Meganium in the back. So even if my opponent didn't like that, I think it would have been over, especially with the Stunfisk in the back, and I have the Meganium to lock it in. But that was a very clever switch that they did. And right here, typical situation where you go Altaria switch, they end up shielding, and then now you have Bastard down to farm down. Again, like I said, I don't wait out the switch clock just so I could get a quick energy, or just so I could prevent them from switching out, and then just go straight farm down. Even Dragon Pulse is not going to do that much damage. I have a bunch of energy right now, see what they bring in. I'm kind of ready to switch out, but so I go quickly switch, and then they go into Meganium. I have a shield advantage, so pretty good right there. I'm not going to shield any of the frenzy plants unless I get really low, mainly because the ice beam is going to be much more valuable to shield later on. And I have a slight energy advantage too, so that's good, because then that means I win it out even if on even shields. My opponent doesn't shield again. I think we're both approaching a little bit lag. Not too bad. And at this point, I could just frenzy plant it down. I don't really know what my opponent's play is at this point. It's kind of tough, but I just have to get to one frenzy plant, and then it's pretty much GG's. Oh, and his play rough, so that definitely my opponent definitely won't get to another play rough in time, and then I'm gonna 5-up it down. And right there, I was able to go 4 for 5 on the last set and get to 31-32, and that's pretty much how I got to 24, or tied for 24, and 24th in the world for Go Bad League that day. So hopefully that video was helpful. If you're looking for a great league team, I will say that Shadow Banette is pretty useful and pretty essential. If you want to replace Shadow Banette, I would recommend Haunter over regular Banette, mainly because regular Banette's not going to hit as hard, and the biggest drawback for Haunter really is that you're going to have a worse matchup against Tipnose, any other confusion users, and probably Toxicroak as well. But like I said, Toxicroak is just good against this entire line. I would say if you have a Shadow Banette with frustration, say just teaching a Shadow Ball should be enough, because there's not a lot of situations where you actually need Thunder. Shadow Ball is really the way to go. If you need Thunder, it's really against kind of a Vigoroth or Umbreon, and Umbreon is just kind of a lost matchup one way or another. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.